Thank you very much, everybody, for being here. I'm joined by school committee members Barbara Gresham, Latonia Naylor, Vice Chair Josiah Gonzalez, who will be speaking on behalf of the school committee, of course, Police Superintendent Clapperud, and Superintendent Dan Warwick. Obviously, the incident that occurred at the High School of Science and Technology, we take very seriously. You see throughout the country some tragic things that have been occurring. Knock on wood, we have been proactive, and we have not faced those type of situations except for yesterday. And I want to commend the Springfield Police Department and the staff and teachers at the High School of Science and Technology. I reached out to Principal Aline this morning to touch base with him and anything that he needed there for the staff and students. Superintendent Warwick will also go into the counseling services that were made available for the staff and obviously the students that were there. The District Attorney Anthony Gallooni has this now. Police Superintendent Clapperud will speak about what Captain Trent Duda, who's the best in the business, are doing. We're hopeful within the next 24 to 48 hours that there'll be more information about wrapping this thing moving forward. Once again, adults came into the High School of Science and Technology to perpetrate negative activity. A vehicle was recovered. Arrests have been made. Superintendent Clapperud will speak about the individuals arrested, who has a pretty heavy criminal record on that. Other suspects are being sought. The big thing here is that with the social media frenzy that was out there, indicating people that were shot, people that were injured, and even worse, that's why you have to be careful pertaining to social media. That did not occur. There were no students or teachers that were hurt or anybody that was shot. The big thing here is that this is why we invest so heavily in technology and our Quebec officers. The quick actions of our Quebec officers who are trained to be in school resource officers, and the camera system, the security camera system, which is only used in these type of emergency situations, help police pinpoint immediately where they had to go and able to make arrests quickly and guard the vehicle. Unlike the tragedy that occurred in God rest their souls, Uvalde, Texas, where public safety officials in the police department waited 45 minutes to enter, SPD moved in immediately to quell that situation. This situation could have been tremendously worse if that shooter got loose in the school and indiscriminately started shooting at people. As we move forward, you know, the video, again, and the District Attorney Gallooni has that video, and that is under investigation right now. For the record, we do active shooter drills. And ironically, that drill was done, I was there, we were there up at the Sci-Tech, that area, not some months ago. Adam Farm, if I'm correct on that. So I'm going to, at this point in time, again, we are not only there to educate our students of all creed, colors, and backgrounds. We are there to keep them safe. And I believe with all the investment we've done, that is shown. This, again, was adults getting into the school, being led into school, and the investigation will continue. Thank God nobody was hurt or worse on it. The counseling was made available today. We wanted to get back to normalcy as quickly as possible and make sure that the students feel safe and sound, and the family members. But we wanted to give an update, and I'm going to bring up Superintendent Clapperud just to reassure our parents and families, because there's some wild information that is out there. But as I open, I will close with this. This highlights the importance of having trained Quebec officers in our schools and having that emergency camera system specifically for these types of situations, which were able to police officers to pinpoint immediately and go in on the attack. So with that, let me turn it over to Police Superintendent Clapwood for an update, and then we'll go to Superintendent Dan Warwick, and then Josiah Gonzalez, the Vice Chair of the School Committee, for a few words at that point in time. Police Superintendent Cheryl Clapper.
Thank you, Mayor. Once again, we received the call about 2:10 yesterday afternoon for a shot fire and then a disturbance at Sci-Tech. So we had 2 student resource officers at Sci-Tech at the time. We immediately, with the real-time crime analysis center, activated the cameras inside Sci-Tech, and we were able to see where the problems were and where we needed to respond. One of my female SRO officers was engaged with several people involved in a fight in a hallway, used her OC spray to, I think, stop people from the haymakers that were being thrown initially. We had some adults that had entered the school. At one time, one of these people who came in, one of the adults who was not a student there, came in and did have in his possession a gun. During the fight, one of the students was struck on the side of his head, and he had a little bit of a laceration on his cheek, and the gun either went off accidentally or was fired, and it took out one of the windows in the hallway. Nobody was shot. Nobody was aimed at or the target of that shooting. The Quebec officers and the response of the other units caused everyone to flee, and because of the camera system, we were able to see the descriptions of people we were looking for and followed them outside of the school, and we were able to see what vehicle they got into. One of the Quebec officers was able to keep one of the suspects inside the building, and when other officers arrived, they helped her place him into custody. The subject arrested, Josiah Livingston of Hartford, Connecticut, had a past conviction of firearms and had open drug dealing charges, and we're happy to say he's being held on $25,000 bail. So he is an adult. He was not to be in that school. He entered with other adults after they received a phone call from somebody inside about a fight. So all being said, it was students inside who called for people outside, and once they gained access to the school with a firearm, we had a very serious incident on our hands. But I would say thanks to 2 Quebec officers being on scene, the availability of the cameras, and the quick arrival of other officers, it ended without further incident. So Josiah was arrested. When I left the station about a half an hour ago, there's paperwork being completed for charges on another suspect, and I think we'll be able to let you know that tomorrow, who else is going to be charged in this crime. And so what happened was social media forced us to come out with a statement a little bit before we would have liked to. As you can imagine, it was a chaotic scene. We had many people to interview, and we had hours of video footage to go through to get exactly what happened, to give you an accurate account of this incident. But with social media and embellishment and fabrication and people putting misinformation out, it was important we got a statement out yesterday afternoon to let people know the scene was safe, we had made an arrest, and no one was shot. But because of social media and somebody live streaming on Facebook and misinformation, we couldn't let that continue on. That was going to put fear in people's minds for no reason. That was not the case. So we came out with the statement as quick as we could yesterday, knowing that today we would have much more information, and tomorrow even more than that. And we know who's responsible, we know why, so we will work with Superintendent Warwick and the school department and bring appropriate charges. I will just say that I thank God that no one else got hurt, and I thank God that my student resource officers are trained properly, and I'm very thankful for the camera system so that we know exactly where to go. God forbid that somebody with the gun had grabbed some student and gone in a different direction. We would have been able to find them and direct officers immediately with the help of the camera system. So the car that they came in has been recovered. One subject is under arrest. We're getting complaints on another suspect, It's still a fluid investigation. There's still a lot of camera video footage inside and outside to go over to make sure that we have things correct, and that's what we want to do. We want to be accurate in our charges, and we want to be accurate with who was involved. So, as I said, I thank Superintendent Warwick and all the cooperation from the school department. I think the SPD gets along very well with the school department, and this was just an example of how we're going to work together to keep trouble out of our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Clapton. Thank you, Superintendent Clapton. We're also joined by school committee member Denise Hurst, who has just appeared. Thank you, Denise, for being here. Before I bring up Superintendent Warwick, I just want to indicate again with Principal Kevin Lalene and his team, who've done a tremendous job at the High School of Science and Technology. It wasn't too long ago, maybe 10, 12 years ago, there was a 39% graduation rate. Now they're in the 90s there. So this is not to attribute it to what goes on at the High School of Science and Technology. With that, let me bring up Superintendent Dan Warwick to speak on the school side, and then on behalf of the school committee, Vice Chair Josiah Gonzalez. Superintendent Dan Warwick.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to begin by commending Principal Kevin Lalene and the staff at the High School of Science and Technology for their fabulous response to this issue that occurred yesterday with adult perpetrators from the outside descending on our school. They responded, in my opinion, in a heroic manner, and we avoided a catastrophe due to their wonderful response. I also want to thank the mayor and the school committee for their support over the years in keeping the school resource officers in the schools. The school resource officers responded immediately, and again, I'd say in a heroic manner. I want to thank Superintendent Clapprood for her cooperation, because they responded right away, and again, we averted a catastrophe. I think that the staff at Sci-Tech did a great job again this morning. Went over and visited the school in the morning, made sure everyone was well. Kids were back in the classrooms, learning was taking place, and we were back to normal. Can't say enough about the staff at the High School of Science and Technology. The turnaround they've done at the school, as the mayor said, taking the graduation rate from 39 to 92%. The schools have never been safer in Springfield. Arrests are down 95% since 2012. Out-of-school suspensions are down 75%. Again, these perpetrators came in from the outside looking to wreak havoc in our school, and it was a valiant response by the teams at the school. The investments in technology that we've made in camera systems and security guards also are noteworthy. All the research is harden the target, and we clearly have hardened the target. So again, I want to commend everyone for their quick response. We're going to continue to look at this and continue to work to improve our security, but I'm very, very thankful to the staff that was willing to put their own life in danger to protect our kids, and our number one objective is the safety of our students. So again, I want to commend everyone, and thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Warwick. Thank you, Superintendent Warwick, and now I will bring up Vice Chair of the School Committee, Josiah Gonzalez, for a few words. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As my colleagues, thank you for joining to make this statement. While the events of yesterday were in fact unfortunate, and as some have mentioned already, social media had shared variations of the incident yesterday. What was commendable was the work of law enforcement officials, our SPS staff, and personnel. But I want to note that the importance of this press conference and this joint effort that we're putting forward today is because there's a call from the community and constituents as to the events of yesterday. And up until recently, as a body, we've yet to have deliberations or an opportunity to understand the efficacy of the policies that we put in place as the governing body of the school department. So thank God that this afternoon we're able to stand here and talk about the great efforts, policies that we've put in place, be it the access that SPD has to SPS cameras and/or the critical incident drill policy that my colleagues and I supported and we put through in addition to the emergency two-way radio communication policy, just to list a few. But the work's not done here. And moving forward and for next steps, I'm confident to work with my colleagues to continue to put at the forefront the need for us to have a discussion, a meeting, to understand, again, the efficacy of the policies that we have put in place as a body, any shortcomings that may or may not have taken place, and how do we support the school department moving forward. It's important to note this is a team effort. Pretty sure that the mayor would agree, the superintendent of police and superintendent of our Springfield Public Schools, and that requires collective intelligence and not individual expertise. So thank you and God bless.
Thank you, Josiah. Thank you, School Committee Woman Barbara Gresham, School Committee Woman Latonia Naylor, and School Committee Woman Denise Hurst. I don't know if you have any questions. There might be some that we might be able to address. There might be others, again, that we cannot address at this point in time. But as I said last night to the media, that I would follow up with Superintendent Warwick and Superintendent Clapproot on a briefing and with the school committee members, and I'm hopeful, we're hopeful, Police Superintendent Clapper's indicated to me, and again, District Attorney Gallooni now has the case. Within the next 24 to 48 hours, we might have more information to wrap up this case. But that's what we have. We've been very succinct with it. Mike Dobbs, you have a question?
I just was wondering if, out of this incident, are there any additional security measures, programs, policies that are being considered, since this is, of course, the first time that something like this has happened in our school?
Well, I'm going to echo with Superintendent Warwick, Superintendent Clapper, and with Vice Chair Josiah Gonzalez says, thank God that we moved and we had these policies in effect because they served us very well. Anytime any type of situation like this occurs, which I hope is the last one, or when you're dealing with disaster or man-made disasters, natural disasters, you do a post wrap-up review, and that will occur at that point in time. But if it was not for again, these were adult individuals that should not have been in this school, that were called from students to come into the school. If it was not for the quick response of Quebec officers, and then the security camera system, which is only utilized in these types of specific emergencies. And thank God it was. I made the analogy, the tragedy that occurred in Uvalde, Texas, where law enforcement waited 45 minutes to enter that building. And God rest their souls, many, many individuals and children were killed. Here, we were able to move quickly. SPD moved in quickly. Arrests were made. Vehicles were grabbed. Very important information on IDing the suspects, some of which we already know, some we just indicated, one that has a very, very bad jacket and rap sheet that entered the school there. So, again, counseling sessions were given. Security reviews will be done. Active shooter training is done, and it was done at Sci-Tech not too long ago on it. So as Vice Chair Gonzalez indicated, and Cheryl and Danny, thank God we had this stuff in place. This could have been far worse if this individual just went on a rampage. And I want to commend, and I reached out to Principal Kevin Leline today, this morning. I want to commend the staff there. They jumped right in. They jumped right in. The Quebec officers and then the cavalry showed up there with the police department. But they knew where to go. They knew exactly where to go on it. So there's always, Mike, there's always a post wrap-up that's done to see what was done, if something else could have been done better. Again, we've hardened our targets very much. Entrance areas, lockdown with the doors, the technology, the cameras, the security officers, the Quebec, the school resource officer, which we call Quebec, specially trained on it. But, you know, as a parent having kids that were in school at one time, and many of my school committee members have children in school, you think the worst, and you want to make sure that your kids are safe and sound. So we're going to continue, number one, educate and keep them safe and sound. And I'm hopeful in the next 24 to 48 hours, we have even more specific information on that.
I was going to add,
Yes.
you guys talk about the power of technology.
Yes.
You talk about tapping into these cameras at the high school. But there was also kind of a disadvantage, right? When you talk about social media. Talk to me about the power of technology and how it played a role in the security cameras as you mentioned, but what people should look out for going forward, especially in the schools?
I'll have everybody speak on that, 30 Rock. Good question. Social media or the innovation is great. I mean, can be very helpful at times. But at times it can be very hurtful and spread misinformation and spread fear and spread chaos. And to some people, they think it's 15 minutes of fame. As Superintendent Clapproot alluded to, the individual that was FaceTiming live after committing this despicable act, FaceTiming live. So that was important, and Superintendent Clapproot indicated. I know all the media had contacted me and contacted the Superintendent Warwick, Superintendent Clapproot, and we were saying, we're putting out a brief statement just to reassure, and then we want to come back with exact information. But, Wesley, you're absolutely right. There was things that were completely misinformation and completely out of line that were being funneled through social media that we had last night, that we had to make even more of a forceful statement on it. So where there's a lot of pros to it, social media can create a lot of cons. And that puts, families and parents and students, puts them in fear of what happened, what didn't happen. Is my child okay? And I think one of them came out that 3 people were shot. No such thing happened. Were we happy that this occurred? No. And we take it very, very seriously. But I'm going to let Superintendent Clapproot, Superintendent Warwick, and Vice Chair, if you want to comment. But I appreciate you bringing up that question. I don't know if you want to comment at all. I know you had mentioned it.
Yeah, Wes, I think I mentioned it earlier. Social media is good, but when they're spreading lies and misinformation, it can turn a situation that was rendered safe and safe for the students into a chaotic mess because they believe what everybody's putting out there. And people are putting it out there for, I don't know, likes, hits, to be important, to say 3 people got shot. That scares everybody. With anybody at Sci-Tech, they're thinking, oh my God, 3 people got shot. Absolutely false. So we wanted to take our time and give accurate information. And I knew everybody was nervous and upset, so we just took a few minutes to get as much accuracy as we could. But we knew in the following 24, 48 hours, you'd get more. It just takes a lot of manpower and hours to look through all the video and interview all the witnesses. But here's a case where social media was turning something that we had rendered safe and something that everybody did right into a chaotic scene where I'm sure people were afraid to send their kids to school today and no reason. Everybody was identified. The problem was identified, and we had made the arrest and know who else we want. So we put extra cars today at Sci-Tech. Superintendent Warwick asked, and we certainly did comply just to make people feel safe and say, hey, we're here, and we know what happened, and we've identified the issue.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Thanks.
I don't know, Superintendent Warwick.
I think Cheryl covered it.
Vice Chair.
Yes.
Tony Barr.
Thank you.
That's a good question you asked.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your question on the social media. I think what the social media highlighted from yesterday's event is a need for us to look at and reflect as public officials our response to these incidents. No longer, Mr. Wesley, several decades ago, where institutions, organizations, and government can wait to release information. Yes, we want to gather the information, make it accurate, but the reality is the story was being spun in several iterations of it, thousands and thousands of views throughout social media, and public officials are pressed, as I'm sure my colleagues were, to provide comment. So it's a very interesting dance and predicament to be put in, and certainly something that we'll look at, as a body, because to be frank, we were left sandwiched in between what constituents had viewed on social media and the lack of information all of us were able to provide. So certainly something to be looked at as the trends continue to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And Wesley, to the point, what was on social media was little tidbits of stuff. We have, again, and that's in the hands of District Attorney Anthony Gallooni now, the full video of what occurred. And that's important, because a lot of times you'll see on social media what the individual just wants you to see at that point in time. Was it disturbing? Yes, but that's why we had to quell the misinformation that was out there.
And how many school resource officers do you have? I don't know what your name speaks to that, and at what schools are they located?
Yeah, we're trying to maintain 2 at our high schools and 1 at middle schools. And sometimes we get short enough where we're alternating some of the middle schools, but we try to keep 2 at the high schools.
Any other questions? Yes.
Are there any disciplinary actions or measures being taken for the students who are involved?
I'll let the superintendent handle that.
Yeah, the principal is looking at the video and investigating the situation, and will deal with appropriate discipline for the students that were involved.
And to clarify, the person who was arrested is not the one who had the gun, correct? Correct.
But we know who we're looking for.
Yeah, and they were not students. Right.
Okay, thank you. On notice, I know I had indicated I would, but then we had a little more updated information. So that's when we wanted to send it out to make sure that avail yourself to the information. And again, I'm hopeful within the next, I don't know, Cheryl, maybe the next 24 or 48 hours. Again, the District Attorney Gallooni, Anthony has it now, so we have to let him do his due diligence on it. Superintendent Warwick, they're working on the school side. Police side's already continue to do their work through Captain Duda. And then I believe my school committee members and colleagues will have a follow-up sometime next week. And I think, as Vice Chair Gonzalez had indicated, really highlight, thank God we had these systems in place. Thank you very, very much. Appreciate it.